and welcome to Ep.2 of the podcast. I've heard this week that apparently Dominic Raab has now decided that he's going to put himself forward for an investigation into allegations of bullying.
What? Not another one.
Yep. It's never ending, but we're going to spare you that, and we're going to talk about something even better. Donald Trump.
Woohoo!
The man that keeps on giving. He's he said he's going to run for a second election. He's going to run for presidency for the second time, even though he technically never conceded the first time round. So hasn't he?
He never
technically
left.
He never left.
Never
So he's already done his 2 terms. He can't go for a 3rd term. That's against the Constitution. Yeah, he decided to announce at his Mar-A-Lago estate that he is going to run for a second time or for a 3rd time and see if he can be successful this second time round. Did you watch the clips when he walked out?
It's just full of just the kind of people you'd expect to support him. I think he's going to struggle. A lot of Republicans just have done with him. I think 2016 was it? He was a blank slate. He'd come from The Apprentice, for God's sake. No political history. He was a blank slate. People were sort of, almost the unknown entity of, oh yeah, see what happens. Let's see. He got people riled up. But I think 4 years later, people aren't going to forget what happened on January the 6th. Even, the people that were there will probably blame the government for what happened rather than blaming Trump. Ashley Babbitt, she was a former US, I think she was in the army vet, got shot climbing through the window. One of, I think, 5 deaths that day. It's Trump almost has blood on his hands still from that day, but I think there were some outtakes that got posted, and he was talking about it. He was doing like a press conference afterwards, or doing like a video, and then he was like, "I don't want to say that I lost the election." He was like cutting bits out of it,
Yeah.
and like
I remember that.
He's still there going yesterday. That's a hard word for me to say. Like, what?
He is a special entity within the world of politics. It's safe to say. January 6th definitely has tainted his image, even amongst people that were once loyal supporters. He still don't get me wrong. He still has a very loyal fan base. MAGA Republican supporters are still rife within the US, but I was reading a stat from the midterms that I think something like 28% of people polled said they were voting Democrats purely to not vote for Trump. That is how he has tainted the Republican Party now, where people will not vote for the Republicans because they view, not as a Republican Party, but they view it as the Trump Party, the Trump Brigade, if you want to say either. And it's put the Republicans on the brink where they're split. You got your Marjorie Taylors or whatever who are diehard Trump supporters who will never leave him. But there are more and more Republicans who are now saying we need to get serious. This isn't about personality politics anymore, which obviously is something we discussed in our last episode. We've got to leave this behind and become serious. And we've got to have people who are not just out here, who we want people to run for the presidency, who are not just looking for revenge, people who are looking to actually build on any success the country is having right now, or rebuild the country following the pandemic and the current economic crisis that's crippling the world economy. And he just doesn't represent that to a lot of people now, and he doesn't have that same. I think I watched the videos from when he was doing his announcement, and basically he came out and he had the people there who were obviously going to cheer for him and everything, but he started throughout, it was a little bit dull. It was very boring. It was very not Trump. There was very few. There were Trumpisms, shall we say, within his speech, but he doesn't do well with a teleprompter. That's for sure. He wasn't able to just go off saying whatever he wanted. Even though I will say that he did say some very odd things. He said that he was the first president to not have a war in decades, and that he'd successfully made sure the US wasn't in wars for decades. Sorry to explain it to you, Mr. Trump, but you were only in power for 4 years. I don't see how that's a decade. Nor do I remember you not having any wars.
The speech they made at Mar-A-Lago was arguably one of the most sort of unscripted. He wasn't his normal. He was still,
Trump
coming out with some. Yeah, he was still Trump, but I think he was a more dialed down Trump after. There wasn't the red wave. They've still won the House, so it's going to be hard for Biden to do anything in the next 2 years because he's going to get. Things are going to get blocked, and he's not going to be able to do what he wants. But
I mean, it still wasn't a super majority, though.
No.
They've reached the majority of 218 seats, but they don't have the power to, necessarily like block everything. Because the way it works is that you. I mean, and this goes for the Senate as well. I mean, the Democrats managed to retain the Senate as it stands. They've got. It's even split with Kamala Harris with a tie-break vote.
Yeah.
The only real powers that the Republicans will have now is that they will make it more difficult for legislation to be passed through the House, and they will take control of committees now. Where, for example, they can investigate Biden, they can investigate his son Hunter, because they want to do that anyway.
What about Hunter's laptop?
I know it will become a bit of a farce potentially. But then again, that depends on how many serious Republicans there are now in the House and how many are just there for the ride along because of Trump.
I think we've got we're the British to blame for it. That's you take it all the way back to the Constitution. They threw out the English, the British even threw out the British, and then thought, right, we need a three-pronged government so that no one has all the power. And yeah.
So the British should have stayed in control, you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. I will never, ever forgive America for pouring all that tea in the harbour. That's, as a British person, that's too far.
Oh, honestly. But yeah, I was going to say, did you hear the song that he walked out to at Mar-A-Lago?
No.
He walked out to "Do You Hear the People Sing" from Les Miserables. And I just wanted to die inside. I was like, no, how have you done this to this song? Plus, it's like, considering January 6th, I was like, that has got to be the worst song you could use. Because that's about revolution.
The man is he's just not self-aware at all. He's in his own little Trumpy bubble, which something stinks.
I mean, have you seen that they're talking about a potential challenger to him in the new Florida governor?
Ron DeSanctimonious, as Trump likes to call him.
Ron DeSantis, now known as Ron DeSanctimonious. I don't know where Trump comes up with these, to be honest. He must have he's like Eminem. He's just got a dictionary next to him. He just pulls a random page out and just says that.
I mean, we're staying away from bullying in the UK at least, but Trump is the typical school bully who just comes up with stupid nicknames just to try and put people down, or will pick on someone's characteristics and make fun of them. He's just the typical school bully who tries to get what he wants.
It's not like he's saying this policy is going to do this to our country, so I'll do this. It's saying I don't like this person, so vote me.
Yeah.
Simple as that. I mean, I was thinking about this. Like, you're talking about the fact that he wants to run for the presidency again, third time round, second time lucky, whatever, you'll see. But there's only ever been one president in the U.S. history that's managed to be re-elected non-consecutively. That last was Grover Cleveland back in 1884 and 1892. I have a list of things here, okay? I want you to hear this. This is a list of things that were going on around the same time. First attempt to build the Panama Canal. First Sherlock Holmes book was published. The Eiffel Tower was built. The first Boer War happened, and it was the first journey of the Orient Express. That was the sort of things that happened around the exact time.
Oh, what golden years! What golden years for the world!
So I don't know what it's. I mean, he's running on fumes. It feels like at this point. I mean, even like Ivanka has said that she can't support him in a political capacity. It's all starting to fall apart. You feel, but the thing is, at the same time, there's always that part of you in the back of your head that just says, you can't rule it out, because he did it in 2016. I mean, granted, in 2016 he was up against Hillary Clinton, who was not exactly the ideal candidate in any way either. But I mean, we still don't know who. I mean, he has to win the Republican nomination first, and we still don't know who he would go up against with the Democrat because Joe Biden's not 100% said he would do it. I mean, there's rumors at the moment that people are pushing for him not to, mainly because of his age.
The thing with Trump, and I think this is what is going to swing it. I think even for Republicans is that there's a Wikipedia page about a list of lawsuits involving Donald Trump. That's how bad it is. There's a list. There's the federal and state investigations into the January 6th, the efforts to overturn the election results in Georgia, the confidential information stored in Mar-a-Lago, criminal tax fraud in New York, all of his companies.
I think there's multiple tax fraud claims, aren't
the Trump University, when people applied and paid tuition
there? What
and
a
then
joke
said
that was.
there isn't a university and you're not getting your money back. I don't understand how
he's still not in prison.
The thing with politics, and it's not just America, it's not just the UK, it seems to be most places. And to be fair, it always has been. It's the politics of the person rather than the policies. It always has been. You look at Boris Johnson, people vote for the Conservatives, some for the first time, based on him as a person. But the Donald Trump had no experience. George Bush, governor of Texas for however many years. Barack Obama, state senator for Illinois. They have political experience. We touched on it with saying the UK, people that are in ministerial positions should have some experience.
I will say the US does have a history of this, though. Let's just clarify the name there. Ronald Reagan, he was an actor. He came from Hollywood. So you do it's not unheard of in the US. Their constitution is basically based off who has the most money. But to be fair, Trump has lost some of his biggest financial backers. According to reports that I've read, people who have pulled out and said that they will support other candidates because of January 6th, and I think just generally Trump in general. He's, I mean, I was reading this as well this week. He obviously said he's going to run, and he started to hire people for his campaign. And of the people he was hiring multiple campaign managers because he has a tendency to fire them so quickly. So he was hiring multiple just because he knows that within a month he may have already fired multiple anyway. Yeah. Like I mean, that itself should be a red flag.
He's just he's just impossible to describe accurately because I remember again going back to 2016 run against Hillary. How can you trust a woman with the nuclear, the button to fire nuclear missiles, etc., etc.? But the man makes. You just look at his Twitter account when he had that. The man who tweeted "coffee" and then said, "I know what it meant." Like we all know what it meant. You tried to tweet something, press tweet, and then try to backtrack and say, "Oh yeah, I meant to do that." A person who can't admit that they've made a mistake or can't admit, defeat. Essentially, it's this. But
he's not the first. Like the thing is, all these people who follow him from the Republican Party, either who are in the Senate, House of Representatives, or just people who are just running in the midterms now. Carrie Lake lost the governorship race in Arizona. She still hasn't admitted defeat in that. Yeah. She is like him. She's a election denier. She has said that we will fight this tooth and nail in the courts, even though she clearly lost. I mean, if she had won, she wanted to ban mail-in votes because the Republicans view it as too susceptible to fraud. When in reality, the only reason they don't like it is because the mail-in votes take longer to come in and are usually mostly Democrats and mostly younger generation, especially because of COVID. They hate it because they keep getting to election night and the Democrats look like they're on track to win a state, and then all of a sudden by the morning they've lost it. So yeah, I mean it's getting ridiculous now. These things cannot be said. They have openly questioned American democracy. They've openly questioned the system, and they keep questioning the system. I mean they've done it now since January 6th.
Hmm.
They've been, and that's 2 years ago now.
I was glued to CNN all night and day. Just what I'm a history graduate, so as a historian, I was watching it thinking, "Wow,
This will be
this
told
is
to our kids."
this is history in the making. That's going to be in GCSE or A level politics exams." And then it's just watching the number, because states have different ways of counting votes as well. Some states count mail-in votes first, and in the states that happened, the Democrats were winning, and then the Republicans came and overtook them or got
Yeah.
really close. No, they didn't say anything about that if the Republicans won it. It's the typical, I'm losing at football, but it's my ball, so I'm going to take it home with me. If you're there losing, then they throw up a paddy and the other side's cheating. It's not. You just lost.
Yeah. See, this is where it's like you. I mean, this is why we still say you can't count Trump out, because it's Donald Trump. He won in 2016 when no one expected it. The polls got it wrong. To be fair, the polls got it wrong there, but they got the midterms more or less correct. This whole concept of a red wave, which never materialized. And obviously, a lot of the people that Trump supported didn't do well. But you can't count him out still. And I think that's still a worry in the back of people's minds, in terms of, because when you're being elected to be the American president, the world takes notice. The American people are the only people that can vote for you, but you affect the global hierarchy. You are the number one nation. That is just generally how it is. I mean, it's important because of issues going on in Ukraine, the economic issues we have, China. China versus the US is the key battleground for what our future will be shaped like. And the thing is, just Trump is so anti-China. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there needs, when it comes to China, there is a fine line with how you approach them. You've got to be open and honest, but you've got to be realistic simultaneously. Trump was just simply anti-China, anti this, anti that. Get rid of China, make everything American, make America great again. When you treat China like that, all you're doing is pushing them further away. And the thing is, the people that you're probably going to affect most seriously at the moment would be Taiwan, because you'll just annoy China more and more. And it's just, yeah.
I mean, you had Biden met with Xi Jinping last week. Was it at the?
I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've met recently, and I think they said they spoke about Taiwan and stuff. It
was open and transparent. It's the simple way of how did they do it.
Yeah. The world at the minute, it's a tinderbox. There's wars going on. There's the threat of wars going on. There's the missile that hit Poland, which apparently they're now saying was from Ukraine.
Zelensky denies it still, though, so we'll find out what happens there.
Yeah, could be an error, could be a mistake, but still 2 people died on NATO territory in a war that they've stayed out of. So the world is on a sort of knife edge at the minute, and to have someone like Trump come back and say, "I'm coming back, I'm going to sort it out. I'm the one that..." I heard some of his speech saying, Putin respected me, China respected me, things like that. And
Putin respected him because, as we've seen recently, like Kremlin officials, I think was it? I know it's a Russian official. I can't remember, either working within diplomatic areas or working within the Kremlin, but basically admitted to fixing aspects of the American election. And it's a bit like, oh god, now Trump can't really say that it was a fair election anymore.
He still will.
Oh yeah, he'll claim it because he's
there's people meddling elections all over the world, like the Murdoch empire. The influence he has is incredible.
Have you seen that in even Fox didn't get to the end of Trump's speech. Even Fox didn't keep going.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the headline now. Was it the Washington Post? One of the newspapers that is very pro-Trump at times. I can't remember, it's Murdoch. It might be the one that's owned by Trump, in fact. Basically said basically were going on about how Trump's coming back, and they were basically framing it in a very negative way. And it was just like, even the media don't believe you anymore. Like,
if you're a Republican and you're saying this, even if you're Trump and you lose Tucker Carlson on Fox, then whoa, there's no chance. There is no chance.
I mean, I remember when it was the election, wasn't it? And he was furious because they called, I think it was Arizona. No, I think it was Arizona or Georgia. One of the two is sticking in my mind now. Again, two key battlegrounds, and I think they called it as Democrat in the election. And I remember apparently Trump called up Fox and berated them because he was like, "Why'd you do this? You should have waited. It's not fair. They've not counted all the votes." Yes, they have. No, they haven't counted all the votes.
It's just he's always been a spoiled brat. I think that's what it genuinely
Throwing the toys
is.
out the pram.
every time it doesn't go his way, toys out the pram. He said about the candidates he backed. He said, "Oh, if they win, it's down to me. If they don't, then it's nothing to do with me." It just sums him up as the spoiled brat that's always had his way. And the second it doesn't, it's not because somebody's better than him. It's not because he lost. It's not because any reason why he didn't win. It's because somebody cheated. Or it's because it's because they lied. Fault. It's somebody else's fault. Exactly. It's always what it boils down to. It's always somebody else's fault. Every single controversy that he's been involved with, it's never his fault. You know, the whole the conversation on the bus about grabbing people by etc.
Yeah.
That how we were talking about how you can't speak to people certain ways last week, and that you can't that shouldn't have been allowed. And there were people at MAGA rallies coming out saying, "Oh, it's just how boys talk." You know, I've never
locker room
like that in my life.
talk and stuff like that. Yeah, which is just I mean, talk about what he's inspired. I mean, Herschel Walker, I think, Herschel Walker in Georgia. He's very pro-Trump, former NFL player. Just running for the Senate seat in Georgia, which obviously at the moment it looks like he'd lose, but it's gone to a runoff because of how tight it was. Which if the Democrats do take that, then they will actually have a majority of seats in the Senate, not an outright majority, like a super majority that would help them with everything, but it would allow them to have an easier time with passing legislation. But he's running there, and he's very anti-abortion, despite the fact that he has paid for multiple girlfriends to have multiple abortions. And this is what Trump has inspired. People like that are running for high office, and it's a bit like, how are we accepting that is okay? How are we accepting that is a candidate for some of the highest offices in the country? I mean, if you had that in the UK, and I know we say this considering what's going on in the last 5, 6, 7 years, but if you had someone running like that with those policies, he'd be laughed at. He wouldn't get a chance in, you would feel, because like that is, he's not even stating policy. I mean, he was going off the other day as well on some speech ranting about films, and he was talking about a vampire film that he'd watched, and he was like, "Did you know that's werewolves could kill vampires?" What? What's this got to do with politics?
I thought you were going to try and do an American accent then. I mean,
no, that would don't get cancelled. But that would have, honestly, I was like, "What are you on about? Like, how has that got anything to do with the economic situation that the country is in, or the Ukraine war? Like, what is going on?" And
he watched Twilight and thought, "Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll use that."
Honestly, and the thing is, it makes you question now as well. Like, again, what's the point? Like, and and the thing is, like, when that becomes the acceptable, the accepted candidate, like what you should be like as a candidate, then politics becomes a mockery. And
I mean, the fact that 435 seats up for grabs every 2 years for the House of Representatives, and you're gonna get your Marjorie Taylor Greens who are just
Yeah.
Just insane. I,
She's a strong QAnon believer, isn't she?
yeah,
And she also she's partial to that theory that Hillary Clinton is somehow involved in some worldwide pedo ring.
yeah. If she does listen to this and thinks that's defamatory, then sorry, I'll apologize. But I think when you're gonna get those characters who have support in their local areas, know where to get that support as well is the key thing. They know where to tap into things. They know who to speak to, where to go, and same with Herschel Walker. You know, former NFL player, big thing in the US. I'm a fan of it, but he played for the Cowboys, so yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe not. But it's like we were talking about the other day when we were doing that psychological test on how to spread disinformation on social media. It's conceptually, it's that people are knowing how to tap into people's emotions, saying something outlandish, but it makes it makes an imprint, and people will actually listen then and follow, and they start to believe it. And I mean, I'm starting to think that some of these politicians are believing their own lies now. I mean, if they weren't already, let's be honest. But and then it's eventually it will have to become truth because they'll will it into existence, and it's just like you it is worrying. But
it is.
I mean, again, we don't know who will win the Republican nomination. I mean, we'll see where Trump goes.
I mean, Ron DeSantis is, people describe him as Trump 2.0. He appeals to very, very sort of hardened Republicans. He's very in that right-wing camp.
But yeah, and that's the thing is, like, what do the Republicans do? Because the Republicans will probably say, "Oh, we like Ron DeSantis because he's got that right-wing thinking that we want as a leader of our party, but he doesn't have the baggage that comes with Trump." But will the American people want to vote for that? And the thing is, Ron DeSantis successfully, obviously, re-elected as governor in Florida, but he's still somewhat of an unknown in the political sphere as such, because he's not been a major player in the news as such over the last 6 years. I don't remember him ever really being mentioned in the UK or even American news,
which might be a good
Trump's time. I mean, that might help him out. That will definitely help him out because he's not linked, like I said, to that Trump baggage. But we'll have to see. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else. I mean, the theory I've heard, I mean, whether it's for the Democrats, whether it's Biden or say Kamala Harris, for example, who they say they think is Biden is sort of grooming to follow in his steps. But whether it's one of them two, they think that if it was to be Trump or some Republican, they think that it would be those two. And then potentially people are talking about Liz Cheney running as an independent, as someone who will look to try and split the Republican vote to try and basically make a statement, because obviously she was forced out because she, after on January 6th, was very much Trump's a bully. He's at fault for this insurrection. He should be taken to court and jailed and whatever. And he wasn't very happy about that, and he vilified her, and the Republicans basically kicked her out. And I mean, she's a very senior Republican at the time. But that is a theory I've heard. Whether it will actually happen, I somewhat doubt it, because independents don't necessarily do very well in American politics.
It's such a partisan system. I think
if you don't have the money either, then it's like
yeah. We said last week, didn't we? You need $1 million to $1 million to even think about running.
Yeah, which is odd for me, from the systems I've grown up in, at least. And I would imagine the same for you.
Yeah, the fact that the only way to be in charge of a country is to already be a millionaire.
Yeah. The richest wins.
Isn't that just life? Isn't that just life?
And it is an odd one. But here we go. I want to hear your prediction. Who will be the Republican nominee and who will be the Democrat nominee?
I genuinely, I think it's going to come down to Ron and Don. for the Republicans.
Can we term that one? Can we get that?
Ron and Don.
Want to get that as a hashtag?
Yeah, hashtag Ron and Don. For Democrats, I don't know, because Biden's going to be 81, I think, in the next election.
He's already the oldest president.
Is he going to want to campaign that, heftily? It always happens with the midterms, isn't it? That there's always the sort of most times in the midterms, there's a flip of something the other way. So I don't think that's an indicator on what's going to happen. I think you'd see what happens in the next 2 years and things like that. But I think Kamala Harris, maybe, but I don't think the American people are willing to go that far with voting for not only a woman but a woman of color as well. I hope if she is the nominee that I'm proved wrong, but we'll see.
I mean, again, the midterms are usually seen as a popularity poll for the sitting president, and generally they go the way of the opposition.
Yeah.
But they didn't really do that this time around. Again, a lot of Trump candidates didn't do well, or the ones that he backed. The Republicans didn't take the Senate, and they obviously, as we said, and then they obviously looked likely to have taken the House, but very not with any sort of oomph to it. Like, it was very much like a beleaguered crossing the line, and in a way that says something about Trump. It says something about the Republicans, and it says something that people are willing to look past Biden's failures, because his popularity rating is very low. I think I can't remember what the stat is. It's one of the lowest in like 20 years, no, 40 years even, something like that. For a sitting American president, I think only Donald Trump may have had a lower rating, and he might be dissuaded by Democrats from running again because of his age and because of his popularity. People just don't want him. I mean, his economic policies haven't gone down well with the American people. And let's be honest, the two things that get an American president re-elected are the economy and winning wars. That's the simple fact. Those two things get you re-elected in the US. He's not actually got the US fighting a war, even if they are heavily helping the Ukrainians against Russia, and the economy is not exactly doing brilliantly. So it probably wouldn't be wise for him to stand again. Whether he does is another question, but I have a feeling that Democrats will internally at least be saying to him, I don't think you should do this. Back Kamala Harris. She's going to have had 4 years as a VP. Back Kamala Harris, let her have a go, and hopefully, we can rely on her. I mean, she was still somewhat popular when he ran. Rely on her popularity versus the Republican unpopularity, and see where it goes. I think it will be tighter, that's for sure. I mean, I think it was already tight to some extent in the last election anyway, but I think it will be a much tighter race come the next election.
I think the one thing we can take away from it is don't tip tea in a harbour.
Basically, that's one thing we've learned: never tip tea in the harbour.
Otherwise, your whole political system will just be chaos and be the subject of many politics podcasts.
Exactly. But as we say, keep them coming.
Because we want another one.
Not another one. Yes, we want another one. So thank you for listening into this episode. I do hope that we can also get these episodes out soon as well on other platforms. We're working on that.
If you're listening to this and it's already out on another platform, then hello.
Yeah,
we did it.
Somehow.
We did it, Joe.
But we hope you enjoy this episode, and we will see you next week, or you will hear us next week for another one.
Not another one.
Not another one.
It's impossible not to do it in the accent.